Please join me in welcoming Jim Rinaldi and Davida Johnson to the stage.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay? All right. Welcome. Good evening to everyone here. Welcome to the 2022 Executive Leadership Awards dinner. It's so great to see everyone in person. Great turnout tonight. Yes. Thank you. I want to first thank the people in the back who have done such, not that physical back, but in the background, who did such an amazing job. Pablo Morales and Stephen Taylor, who worked tirelessly hours that you've seen emails after emails, and please just give them a hand clap. We welcome you to the campus. We have an amazing lineup of speakers and panelists and awardees, including Keith Ferrazzi, New York Times bestselling author, and we're excited to hear from him tonight too. So with that, I will turn it over to Jim Rinaldi to give you a few remarks to get our program started.
Because on Zoom, you're not that good looking. No. And by the way, that picture, my hair was lighter for some reason. I don't know why. It's great to see everyone here. Thank you for being here. We're going to have a great time tonight. As Davida said, we have a great program. We have wonderful speakers. And it's just an honor to have you here, and it's an honor to be here. I want you to know that Innovate at UCLA has been around for a long time, as you may have heard Jim Davis talk about. Longer than I've been around, well, almost. Anyway, I want to say that we are a membership-based organization, a member-driven organization, and we thank our members for being here. And can I have an applause for the members who are here? Thank you. But I also want to thank our guests for being here. We have guests here who are potential members, and we hope that you'll consider joining us. And please reach out to any member here to find out more if you want to. We have a wonderful website, innovateucla.org. Please come and visit us and talk to us. I also like to thank our sponsors. You heard Shaheen say that earlier during the networking session. We have an amazing group of sponsors, and without our sponsors, we couldn't do this. So thank you, our sponsors. Hold on. I'm going to do a special call out to my buddy Kevin Parikh, CEO of Avasant. This is the third year in a row he's sponsored us. Thank you, Amera 100. Thank you, AWS as well. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to having more conversations, and hopefully you guys all will have a good time as well. I do want to tell you we have such a wonderful program, but I have to give you one metaverse experience. Yes, I'm experienced in metaverse. I don't know why that drew laughter. I have the Oculus. One tip, if you get the Oculus, don't walk around. Kind of stay stationary. I play golf in the Oculus. I play better. I cheat. I do it in real too, but that's different. But I have to tell you, Chris Mattman is here. Chris is the CTIO of JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I know a little bit about it. And Chris and I were in the metaverse. We met in the metaverse. I got to visit what he had built recently, and I got to visit some of the conference rooms I used to go to because there was always meetings. And I looked at Chris, and I saw there was Chris's face on an avatar, and then I looked at myself. I was a female. I have never looked so good in my life. I did notice a glass ceiling. Oh, that was fun. But I want you to know I experienced a wonderful time. I enjoyed it. I never looked so good before. And I want you to experience the metaverse too. So you're going to have a wonderful night tonight with that in mind. And I want you to also reach out, meet new friends. Keith is going to do a great job because he always does a great job. And what he's saying tonight is going to be very relevant to our future. So thank you very much. Enjoy your dinner. I'm also going to bring up our chair of our Executive Leadership Awards, Andy Schley, who formerly was with Sony Pictures, SVP, and he's going to introduce this evening to you. Andy?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Jim. Well, it's great to see all of you here. I think this is going to be an exciting program tonight. I don't want to spend too much time between you and your dinner, but obviously a lot of work goes into putting an event together like this, and I'd like to really thank the committee that did it. Next slide, please. That did the work, that we met weekly for pretty much a year to do the vetting of the awardees, to find our speakers and put together the panel. And it was people. Jim thanked me for what I did, but the working with this committee was just a joy. This is just a fantastic group of people to work with. So thank you very much. I'd also like to thank, we had 2 student volunteers, and they spent many, many hours looking at companies, researching them, and really doing the legwork to help us find the awardee that we found. So with that, I'd like to invite up Thomas Phelps, our executive chair, and Heidi Pease, one of our board members, who are co-masters of ceremony for our event tonight. Enjoy.
Great.
Thomas.
Hi, Heidi. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
And thank you, Andy. It's great to see all of you in person. We are back for the first time in 3 years, so it's awesome to be back, isn't it? So I was thinking about 2 hours ago when I was driving here, there's something else that is back in SoCal. What do you think that is? Traffic. So I think my office at Laserfish is probably only about 20, 25 miles away, and it took me about an hour plus to get here. So let me ask you, who drove the furthest to get here today? Who's from Pasadena, Mr. Jim Rinaldi? Okay, Pasadena. How about West Covina? Anybody? Brea? Okay, Orange County. Thank you, by the way. I live in Orange County. Thank you for coming all the way here and driving all the way back home from Orange County. And Heidi, what about yourself? How was your commute here today?
My commute started at 5 a.m. this morning, and it only took me about 6 hours.
6 hours. Let's give Heidi a round of applause.
I drove from Phoenix. I couldn't miss the event to have an in the real life event, so excited to be here.
That's amazing. And I think you heard from Jim and Davida and Andy about all the volunteers to help put this event together. And I do want to take the time to recognize our amazing board members who help curate the content for every single program. They volunteer their time, and we have some of the most recognizable brands represented here today. Teresa from Lionsgate Entertainment, we've got Andy formerly of Sony, we have Doug from Fox, and many, many others. But let's have all the board members stand up and give them a round of applause as well. Thank you. And so for those who have not met a board member, please make it a point to do so during the dinner event. Just go up to them, say hello, exchange contact details. And that's the other thing that's great about Innovate at UCLA, is we believe in all of you. We believe in community and the power of that community in driving change and using technology to drive change as well. So with that, I also wanted to ask all of you, there's a call to action, to get out your cell phones and to take a picture of the slide. And what Bhupesh is going to love is that when you walk around for the next 2 weeks, you will have a picture of Bhupesh in your photo gallery. Where's Bhupesh? Bhupesh, stand up, please. All right, he's here. So we'll do a picture with you as well. All right, so there's no excuse for not coming to our virtual event that Bhupesh is moderating on October 27th. It's going to be on cybersecurity and on board readiness. You don't want to miss it, so please make sure you save that photo of Bhupesh and join us. Also, we have a wonderful event on women in technology 2 weeks later that will be virtual. Again, it's at lunchtime, so please join us for lunch virtually. And then our CX Show Exchange dinner event for CIOs. So please join us on December 1st as well. So with that, can you tell us what do we have in store for our program today?
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. We have a great evening planned. First, we're going to start off with dinner. And then after about 20 minutes or so, we will invite Teak Mock up to stage, who's going to share with us an amazing visual art experience that is a virtual one. So looking forward to that, followed by our keynote speaker, Keith Farazi. Then we'll have a panel on the metaverse. What is it? What's the hype? What's reality? And what does it really mean for you? Finally, we'll wrap up around 8:30 with our awards program. So for now, please enjoy your dinner, and we'll be back up here at about 6:40 p.m.
Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody.
Lights.
All right.
All right, let's get started again, please.
Yes. Welcome back. Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed your dinner and had an opportunity to get to know your neighbor, maybe make a couple new connections or reconnect with friends. Next up on our program is Teak Mock, who will take us through her art installation. Thomas, you know Teak. Tell us how you came across
I do.
Teak.
So I don't know if any of you have been to the Wall Street Journal Tech Live event in Laguna Beach, but it is a really, really cool event. And what's really interesting about it is that you could have the CEO of Disney up on the stage. Within 5 minutes, there's a story on the front page of the journal about that interview. And so I remember I got lost once and went into another room, and I was mesmerized because Teak was standing there with the VR glasses on and painting in the metaverse. It was really, really cool. And I remember I probably attended a half a dozen different sessions, but that's the one session that was sticky with me. So I'm very pleased that when I called her, that she picked up my call 4 years later, and so we're very pleased to have her here today. Teak has done this artwork at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas, if you like Austin. She's also had her artwork showcased at the Sundance Film Festival. So with that, please welcome Teak Mock.
Hi everyone, I'm Teak. Yeah, thank you so much, Thomas, for having me here. I've been painting in VR for the last 5 years. I started out as a painter, and I've been painting digitally. Worked with the Google Tilt Brush team, which is now OpenBrush, an open source, VR painting tool. And I also do illustrations in film and TV, but in creative industries, I think VR is definitely just going to transform the way we are able to share ideas. And so during this time that I initially started painting in VR, I was spending 12 hours a day in the headset. I've spent over 12,000 hours just painting and learning the software, and it's been really transformative, but it's also extremely isolating. And I really I started painting, it really changed the way that I thought about myself in this space, thought of just our interactions with each other. And so I created this art installation called Grisaille, premiered this at Sundance in 2019, and it's really a piece about reflections of yourself and others in this space, and the way that in the time that you're isolated, ways that you can use it to actually use the tool as an extension of oneself rather than just a way to connect virtually and remotely. So I've actually only shown my work in person because it is part performance, because it does require me and the user to be in the same space at once. And so the piece you're going to see is really a glimpse inside of one's mind, really focusing on not just mimicking external perspectives, but also matching what one might feel in the internal, from the internal perspective. So everything here is hand painted. Ended up painting 223 people into this piece specifically. So yeah, so this piece is about 10 minutes long, and towards the end, I'll have Thomas come up. And so what you're seeing is a simulation of an art installation that will also include a final piece that will be painted. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Let's give it up for Teague. I couldn't see what was happening, but hopefully it was cool. So, but I do think it's kind of neat to be drinking a glass of wine in the metaverse, so that's kind of neat.
So enthralled, I forgot to come on up. That was amazing. Thank you so much, Teague. And thank you, Thomas, for being such an amazing subject as well. So now we're going to move into the real life portion of the evening. I would like to introduce you to our keynote, our first in real life keynote presentation by Keith Ferrazzi. And here to introduce Keith and share some information about Amera 100 is Michael Geit, Vice President from Amera 100. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Heidi. I appreciate it. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to take this opportunity. You can hear me? Okay. Okay. There we go. Thank you very much. Well, appreciate the opportunity to participate in this great event. Didn't know much about it, but I'm closely associated with Michael Wang from Epson, who's on your board of directors, and he asked us to sponsor, which we gladly did. So really happy to be a part of this. Just real briefly on who Amera 100 is. We are a SI systems integrator specializing in SAP technology. I like to think we're doing our part in terms of innovation and helping companies with their digital transformation. So we help companies implement, upgrade, and maintain primarily their SAP systems. So if anyone is looking for a system integrator, we'd love to talk to you. And other than that, I'm looking forward to introducing Keith to come on up here. Keith Ferrazzi, renowned for relational and collaborative sciences, chairman of Ferrazzi and their related institutes. Prior to that, he was with Deloitte as CMO, as well as Starwood, and best-selling author on the New York Times list, and contributor to the Harvard Business Review. So, Keith, if you're ready, please give a warm welcome for Keith.
Thank you. I'm good. You know, that I'm still just mesmerized by your work, truly, truly, truly. I thought the only place you could see something like that was on a mushroom journey at Burning Man. But little did I know you could just come to a UCLA technology event. Amazing. But seriously, that was extraordinary. You know, actually, I'm always a little bit, I struggle a little bit being asked to give talks at evening events, right? To me, it's only politicians and comedians that should be giving talks at evening events. And you'll see I'm not particularly political, and I don't think I'm very funny. So what can I do tonight? Maybe I could do something which might keep us alive a little bit, which is be provocative. Let me turn to my clicker down here. Here we go. I want to take you back and tell a little bit about the reason I'm so passionate, and you'll hear the passion, I believe. If we could click, this isn't working, but if we want to go to the next slide. There we go, thank you. The reason I'm so passionate about the conversation we're going to be having tonight is I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, actually a little town called Latrobe. If anybody knows Rolling Rock beer, right? Arnie Palmer, Mr. Rogers, all the best things in the world have come from Latrobe, Pennsylvania. And it's interesting, this was not a great photo now on this resolution, but this was Latrobe back in the 70s, and what's very interesting about it is it hasn't changed much. We all get very proud of organizations like CMU for Pittsburgh, and the transformation that Pittsburgh has made. It hasn't made a transformation. An entirely new area has come in, but if you go back to Pittsburgh and look along the Monongahela, the families that I grew up with, the still families that I grew up with. My old man was an unemployed immigrant Italian who came to the United States with the promise of abundance and jobs. And what we found back in the 70s was the steel industry crashed around us, and everybody was economically destitute. Now, what was interesting about that period of time, we didn't know it at the time until our research has sort of looked at this in retrospect. What caused that destitution was a significant misguidance of American manufacturing at the time. If you were in Pittsburgh at the time, you would look into your newspapers and you would hear things about the labor, the cheap labor out of Japan. And the labor unions were claiming that at this point in time, it was really about unfair international trade. But when you scratch the surface a little bit, what it was really about was a set of individuals, of academics, who had come up with a set of managerial principles and practices around total quality management, continuous improvement, Six Sigma, names like Deming and Duran. These individuals and Drucker and others, these individuals were studying fundamentally breakthrough new ways of doing work. And guess who didn't pay a damn of attention? It was the American manufacturing industry. So where did they go? Anybody know where those folks went? They went to Japan. And Japan, in fact, did at that point in time adopt these extraordinary principles and were able to create a product. We're able to create a product that was significantly lower price and significantly higher quality. And what we were doing was wringing our hands. Now, when I was a kid, I didn't know what I didn't know that that was the essence of it. All I knew was that one of these days I was going to grow up and I was going to do something about it. I thought actually, to be honest, I thought I was going to be governor of Pennsylvania. That's what I was going to do, and I was going to fix manufacturing, and then someday I was going to be president of the United States, right? And little did I know back then that anybody could, but at the time, maybe too close, I don't know. I forgot there's people here from Orange County. But for me, it was a mission. It was an absolute mission. Now look, we wake up today, and I fundamentally believe we are at a similar inflection point. I fundamentally believe that the way we're working are about to undergo one of the most radical and drastic changes, and I fundamentally believe that very few of your organizations have woken up. I fundamentally believe that American business, particularly American business in the Fortune 1000, is still using the same work practices, despite the fact that people in this room have given them technology stacks that would allow you to fundamentally reinvent the way we work. It's not that we need new tools. It's that we need an entirely new mindset and set of practice and policies. Now, it's interesting about that. Let's go to my slides aren't working, so we'll go over there. We've been doing some research on this subject. And what we found is that there is a maturity model of being a world-class hybrid company. So when the pandemic hit, I and my business partner Rick and Sarah, who's with us over there, formerly a client at Verizon and at a company called Anaplan, and a group of others, we actually had 25 sponsors. We raised $4 million over a period of 3 years. And what we were trying to figure out is how do we use this great inflection point not to then crawl out of the rubble and go back to work, but how do we use this inflection point and radically go forward to work, not back? And that's what the research study that we did. We had 2,000 executives and entrepreneurs and thought leaders in roundtable conversations asking the question, what are the best practices of engineering a new way of working in this new work world? And it was very interesting that if you really looked at most companies, you took old ways of working in a physical environment, sitting in physical meetings with 12 individuals collaborating, and we made these breakthrough innovations of going over to Zoom and sitting in meetings with 12 individuals collaborating. And yet, the entire Google tech stack, the Microsoft Teams, all of the things that we could be doing to transform the way we were working was barely scratched the surface. And I have to say that disappointingly so, when we've been benchmarking IT organizations, CIOs who've actually put these tools into place, you're not that much better. And from my perspective, we need as technologists, and so what have we done? We've put some committees together. You put a committee of a CIO and a head of HR and maybe the head of real estate reporting into the CFO, and you've put them in a room and you've said, you're the future of reinventing work. But I'm going to go back to something else that I realized. I don't think any of them have any experience reinventing work. If you look at where we've reinvented work, manufacturing reinvented the work for manufacturing. HR didn't do it. If you look at where we've reinvented work, sales with CRM and enablement of a fundamentally new way of selling with technology, that didn't happen in HR. It happened in this thing called shadow HR called sales support. Sales organizations said, we're not waiting around for corporate support. Sure, you might have bought the CRM system, but it was the sales people who actually re-engineered the way they're working. So right now, I don't think we have any function in our organizations responsible for white-collar reinvention of the way we're working. And in fact, what we have seen, interestingly enough, is that the people who are disrupting your business models, who are the unicorn CEOs. So we have a community that we've created, 3 of them actually. One community in our research institute is unicorn CEOs. Unicorn CEOs who have been reinventing business models, but actually while they're on their way to doing that, they think they might as well reinvent human capital models. Because where they've been disappointed is when they are these fast growth companies and they realize they've got to scale and the old ways of working weren't scaling. So unfortunately, they've gone out and get an HR individual from a Fortune 1000 person that's supposed to know how to scale a company, bring them on board, and just brought all of those old work practices into these high growth companies and stalled the growth and stalled the potential of and so it's basically making them disruptible. So these CEOs of unicorn organizations are now realizing they've got to take it into their own hands as business leaders to reinvent the working model of how we work. And they are doing it. They are doing it. There was a dear friend of mine who passed away during the pandemic. His name was Tony Hsieh from Zappos. Unfortunately, one of the greatest thought leaders around human capital, but also somebody whose mental illness during the pandemic struck him hard and ended up leading to his demise. But Tony was one of those individuals when you would sit down with him. He's one of those unicorn CEOs. When you would sit down with him, he would have such radically innovative ways to think. First of all, reinventing call centers. I don't know how many of you have call centers in your organization. He reinvented call centers to stop trying to maximize for the smallest amount of time you can take in a call center to invented for happiness in the interactions that you had, and as a result, radically improved the customer experience so that Amazon decided to buy them as a laboratory for how to consider scaling their call centers and customer experiences. This is the kind of guy Tony was. He also went on to believe in something called holacracy, where if you're going to believe in the empowerment of an individual, you might as well believe that a group of individuals could renegotiate their social contract together and they don't even need a manager. Right? So he started implementing holacracy. Well, we created in our foundation the Tony Hsieh Award, and we've had hundreds of individuals applying for this award, entrepreneurs just like them, and what they're finding is that holacracy is actually working in some of these places. It didn't work as well for Tony. He was one of the first individuals, but writing about it at the time innovated and inspired so many other entrepreneurs to come behind him. And if you imagine you're trying to scale an organization, what is the choke point of that? Not having enough sufficient managers and leaders to scale the organization. Well, but if you have holacratic teams coaching each other, lifting each other up, inspiring each other, critiquing each other, and even rewarding each other and identifying where compensation is for each other, if you can actually do that, imagine the unboundedness of an organization's productivity. So these are the things that are right now on that organizations today are scratching the surface of. If I just get mundane, and by the way, if you look at this scale of world-class hybrid, we've got a diagnostic that we have. It's about 20 questions of what is a world-class hybrid organization. A Fortune 1000 company, I've not seen one beyond a level 3. Only 20% are at 3, and 80% are down in the 1 and 2 in terms of being benchmarked against the most world-class individuals. Now, what does this really mean? Let's go to the next slide really quick. Taking some of the simplest things that we need to think about. Remember, I made a fun with the idea that we were in meetings of 12 individuals physically, and we just move them into meetings of 12 individuals in Teams and in Zoom. Well, guess what? In an average meeting of 12 people, whether it's remote or physical, only 4 people walk away thinking they were heard. Now, if we're worrying about diversity and inclusion, but any of our given teams doesn't even have sufficient inclusion of the people sitting in the room, except for the individuals who are the leaders or the charismatics, etc., then what are we really doing with the juice inside of our people? Are we squeezing it out? Are we getting it into bolder, more innovative ideas? And the answer is no. Simple tactic, though, that if you open an asynchronous Google Doc or a Teams doc, SharePoint document, and you have people think considerately on a critical question before the meeting, and you can discipline your people to contribute, and most of you are like, well, I can't get my people to do this. If you can discipline your people to actually consider and write up their thoughts before they show up at the meeting, now you've got 100% of the people having at least been heard into the document, and then you use the time when you're together in a synchronous meeting to basically land the plane on what people are thinking, right? And one of the things I'd love to talk to you, I've talked to Andy and Jeff about this in the past, our host from AWS. You know, this idea of showing up in the room and doing the one-page memo, etc. I think it's time to start having a social contract where that can be read in advance, so we don't have to waste the time of the valuable real estate of people being in the room. So if you really look at what I call the collaborative stack, there was a gentleman who was the chief operating officer of Delta Airlines that moved from Delta Airlines over to Cruise. Cruise is one of those automatic driving automotive car companies that happened to be bought by GM, but Mary Barra left it totally alone. So it's a great unicorn company. He goes over there as COO of this new company. He walks in, he sees a problem, and he says to the team, hey, we need to have a meeting on that. He said it with a southern accent, which I can't really replicate. We need to have a meeting on that. And the team looked at him and goes, I don't understand, we're going to have a meeting on that? We haven't collaborated yet. And just pause on that. How do we have a meeting on that? We haven't collaborated yet. Because by the time you get to a meeting, you should have been doing asynchronous collaboration. You should have figured out, are we really looking at the right problems? We should have had dozens of people involved in innovative ideas and thinking before we got into the meeting of 12 people, we could have dozens of people involved in giving innovative ideas and use the time together to wrestle things to the ground when you know, in fact, by the way, you don't even need all 12 people in the room. You can only have 3 people in a room. What we find is that organizations that adopt asynchronous collaboration actually have 30% fewer meetings. How many of you would rather have 30% fewer meetings, right? So that needs to be your challenge, your charge. The reason I'm going off on this is because there is a set of individuals in this world, they happen to be unicorn CEOs that we have at least documented. I believe that everything I'm talking about and everything our research shows in this maturity model, and realizing that collaboration starts asynchronously, it moves remotely, then you get into hybrid and physical collaboration. By the way, I'm not suggesting you don't have physical meetings, you do. But physical meetings are when you should engineer to the emotional stuff, celebration, fun, bonding and connectedness. It should also be the time when you're dealing with really tough issues that you might be having some frustration or fatigue with another individual. That's the stuff you do physically. But what we're doing is we're doing the same stuff we did remotely, physically, and physically remotely, and we're not taking advantage of the full stack and doing it where we should. I say this because I believe you will all be working differently in 3 to 5 years. No question. It will catch up to you. But just like in Japan and in Pittsburgh, the disruption to you, maybe it's not disruption, but the opportunity for you is to leap forward 5 years and start paying attention, not to policies. I don't give a damn if you're 2 to 5 days in the office. It really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, since SAP came along a long time ago, we've been hybrid all along. We've been global organizations that have offices all over the world. We've been hybrid. That's not different. We're still hybrid. And the question is whether or not your work practices have been re-engineered for effectiveness and efficiency and innovation and boldness and speed. And the answer is it isn't. And so the reason, if we go to the next slide, what I want to talk about, and I'm going to give you a couple of quick ideas. By the way, where am I on time? I don't know. I started, what time, Thomas? I got 10 more minutes. Great. You know, there's a whole series of actions that I want you to think about. I've been talking a little bit about one called, I call it meeting shifting. Basically the adoption of your collaborative stack so that you can begin to move out of a meeting-based, meeting-centric. If you went back tomorrow and just said, listen, what are we going to do to reduce the number of meetings we have by 30% and use our tech stack effectively? That's a mission for you. Take that back into your company and then measure it and move it into using the tools effectively. Now, the other thing, though, is very interesting. During the pandemic, it was claimed that organizations that were remote lost bonding and lost innovation. You all saw those studies, right? We went in and looked at those studies. Those studies were done out of Oxford. And it took a large swath of the population, and they asked qualitative questions as to whether or not people felt as connected or not as connected in a remote environment. Well, our data longitudinally, we had shown, because we've been coaching teams since 2000, that in 2019 and before, the average team on a scale of 0 to 5 had a score of 2.8 relative to connectedness. And we would ask questions like, do you feel your team has your back? Do you, your team, care about each other? Very simple questions that around bonded and connectedness. 2.8 on a scale of 0 to 5. Not horrible, but not great. That's the good old days that we long for around bondedness and connectedness, a 2.8. Now, during the pandemic, the average team went down to a 2.2. Not a surprise. That's what was reported on. But what we went in and we dug into this and said, what teams actually were creating innovative practices around bonding in a remote world and which were not. The teams that were creating innovative practices in a remote world, for instance, on a monthly basis, everybody goes around and says, what is my energy level right now on a scale of 1 to 5 and why? So everybody on your team would have an opportunity just in a small moment to say, what is my energy level and why, 1 to 5? Well, it's a 3 today because of X, Y, and Z. That ends up being not only a safety net for people who may be experiencing challenges with mental health, but it's also an opportunity to create empathy and vulnerability and all the wonderful things that you need. And by the way, you would have gotten them in the physical world accidentally by walking down the hallway or in a coffee room, but it was at a 2.8. There are a number of practices that you can do that are purposeful bonding practices. When you bundle 2 or 3 of those together in your organizations, you can go in a remote world to a 4.2 relative to connectedness in a fully remote environment. Then you add physical meetings on a monthly basis where people go much deeper and much more emotional, and you go to a 4.7 on a sense of connectedness and bondedness. So don't give me this, oh, I hearken back to the need to be physical, if all you're going to do is boring small talk, right? Because that's not going to build the bonded and connectedness that you need, but it needs to be engineered. So what we're not talking about is policies. You can have a policy that says you're in the office 3 days a week without the practices that leverage being in the office for the accelerated bondedness. We've got to get out of this business of and the problem is, of course, it's HR, and I love HR. They write some of our checks. HR is a policy organization. It's a policy and program organization. Reinventing the practices of work have to traditionally do with the business unit leaders. And all I'm going to say is if they're not aware enough that this needs to happen, and HR is too busy right now dealing with policy, and finance is too busy dealing with real estate, who can pick up the mantle of re-engineering the practices of the business using technology? Why not the technologists? And you could perhaps do it first and foremost by doing it in your own organizations, right? Let me go ahead and go to the next slide. So when we were doing this research, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Tilly Smith. Tilly Smith was this little British girl who was on vacation with her parents at the Indian Ocean. And all of a sudden, Tilly saw the waves recessing instead of breaking forward. She saw a frothiness of the water, and she said to her mom, "Mom, there's going to be a tsunami." And the mom was like, she's 6 or whatever she was. She goes, "Dear, it's okay. It's not going to be a tsunami. We're fine." And Tilly decided to get belligerent instead of acquiescent. And she started screaming, and she started yelling, and she started pounding her feet, and she was making absolutely a wreck, and her parents were so upset and embarrassed, but all of a sudden somebody coming by, no, don't take my chicken. Somebody coming by When the previous person said, I hope you enjoyed your dinner, I'm like, give me another salad. No. When somebody was going by and said, wait a second, I've heard that too. And they started corroborating some conversation, and the next thing you know, the entire beach was being evacuated because of Tilly Smith. What I want you to be is the Tilly Smith in your organization. I want you to be a chihuahua with a pork chop on this particular issue. Like you can now, very visual, right? You need to go back and make sure that you're the disruptor, as opposed to allowing yourselves to be the disrupted. But the one thing I could also say, and I'll go to the last slide, one thing I can also say is that you don't have to do this alone. Right before the pandemic, I had done a research study, which I had CIOs in mind for it, actually. It was a research study of 6 years, asking the question, how do you lead transformation when you don't have the authority to do so? You can buy the products, but you can't lead the transformation. Some of you might have transformation in your organizations, but you know it's about the business unit leaders, it's about all the other functions co-elevating, and that's the word we created. We said, true transformation happens when you become the kind of a leader that invites people in to co-create and go higher together. Where you're the ecosystem creator, the host of transformation, the Sherpa of transformation, and this idea of co-elevation begins to raise all of the boats. And I learned this from my mother. It's very interesting because I come from Pittsburgh. I talk a lot about my dad, who was a steel worker, and my mom said to me early on after having written my first book, Never Eat Alone, she says, reading your first book, you talk a lot about your dad. And I'm like, okay, well, Mom, so that I sat down and chatted with her, and one of the things I found out, my mom had this group of ladies. She called them the Card Club Girls. The Card Club Girls have been meeting and playing cards together every month for 45 years. Every month they play cards, and they've never once missed a card game in 45 years. When my aunt passed away 2 days before she died of cancer, they sat on her bed. They didn't cancel the card game. They sat in her bed and they played cards with her one more time and said goodbye. When my dad was unemployed, those ladies would cook extra every day. When my dad was out looking for work, they'd bring down extra food, and my mom was able to claim that she was able to stretch a nickel a little bit more instead of having to turn us to welfare cheese, which is what happens in Pennsylvania back in the 70s when your unemployment insurance runs out. When my dad died, those ladies made sure my mom got out of the house every single day for months until she was ready to do it on her own. Now, when I heard about that, it was deeply inspiring to me. I was certainly grateful that my mom still has it. There's 3 of them left. My mom's 90, and they still play cards together. What a blessing. But I realized that, number one, when I was writing this about 12 years ago, I didn't have that in my life. And then I realized for sure that I was not building it in my company, in my team. And I started looking at so many of our clients and the teams that we coach, and it became a North Star. And look, this is an opportunity for all of you to be the Tilly Smith. It's an opportunity for you to be agents of change and transformation. But the good news is you don't have to do it alone. First of all, you don't have to do it alone because maybe there are folks in this room who you could co-create and partner with. And that's part of why we're here, right? That's part of why Innovate at UCLA is created, so that you can create that ecosystem of partnership and friendship, et cetera. And then the other thing is, it's about the people in your organization. It's not your burden. It's these committees who are getting together, who are coming with future work, who are still wringing their hands on policy, but you can help lead them. And as I say, Sherpa is such a great word for leadership in a world where you don't have all the authority, because you're herding and shepherding these souls into something higher. And that's your opportunity. So I'm not sure I was able to, meet a standard of a comedian or a beautiful psychedelic imagery that I was seeing earlier. But I hope I've been a little provocative to give you something to think about as you go back into the workplace. Thank you.
Keith, thank you so much for being here today. I got this new book from Keith called Competing in the New World of Work. And I'm going to go read this again later and see if he mentions his mom in this book. So I wanted to let you know that towards the end of the program, we're going to be raffling off these awesome MetaQuest 2 Oculus headsets. But I did want to invite Teak to come back up and on behalf of Innovate at UCLA and our board to take a picture and to thank you so much for being here today. If you want to join us, please do.
Do I have to enter the raffle for this, or is this going to be mine?
There you go, Teak.
Oh, thank you.
We need a moving action one,
All right, thank you. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Teak.
Thank you. So now we're going to move into the Metaverse panel portion of the evening. And we're going to start with, actually, we talked a little bit earlier today about commute and driving. Imagine if there was an opportunity where you, instead of driving to court, you could go in the metaverse as your avatar and take care of things like probate court. And instead of spending $60 in parking and maybe 2 hours in traffic, it could be done instantly. Well, that's actually happening today. There are cities in the world that are building their own digital twins, including Neom City in Saudi Arabia, Seoul, South Korea, and Miami here in the United States. I've had the pleasure to meet several times with Mayor Suarez on some of the initiatives that he's building. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here tonight because he's helping his residents recover from the hurricane, but he did provide us a video. So with that, let's watch the video on the digital twin of Miami.
Hello everyone, this is Francis Suarez, Mayor of Miami and President of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I'd like to thank Innovate at UCLA for bringing all of us together to recognize and celebrate those who are embracing innovation, technology, and forward thinking. Miami is inspired by your visionary leadership. In Miami, we have witnessed the power of Web3 and its potential to transform the internet and our economy into an open space built through resiliency and collaboration. As policymakers, the metaverse provides us a unique opportunity to rethink what it means to be a smart city and how we can branch out public services digitally to amplify their accessibility. I believe that Web3 can unlock the potential of the internet, bringing with it a new era of government services. This is why Miami became the first city in America to sign a Sister Cities Treaty with Wyoming, a one-to-one geographical replica of our city built within the metaverse. Our digital twin city was co-created alongside the Wilder community with the overarching goal of reimagining how citizens interact with their cities and how local governments can engage with disruptive technologies to tackle some of our most pressing civil challenges. In Wyoming, it will be possible to visualize city data in a 5-dimensional environment, giving us a powerful tool that could be used for urban planning. We could test our new policies and evaluate their potential ramifications long before they become a reality, such as how transit would change by new roads, the effects of expanding utility services, and stimulating potential weather events. We could host interactive virtual town halls, allow residents to process permits through our e-City Hall, and even schedule meetings with local officials right from the comfort of their home. The metaverse could also have a meaningful impact in legacy industries such as tourism. Virtual tourism could drastically improve access to our city, offering multi-sensory, fully personalized tours for anyone, anywhere. Anyone can visit our world-renowned science museum, go for a walk around beautiful Wynwood, and immerse themselves in Brickell City Center, all while earning rewards that can be redeemed across Miami. The potential use cases seem endless, and I'm excited to see in what ways our virtual city enhances the real life of our residents. Web3 is already having a substantial impact in Miami, bringing a new avenue for economic development. Miami-based blockchain startups have raised over $800 million in funding, and well-established blockchain companies have set anchors in our city, creating thousands of high-paying jobs for our residents. This new source of revenue for the city has also funded multiple social initiatives, such as a $200 million gun prevention program, helping to reduce our homicide levels to their lowest level since the 1950s. We are still in the first innings of Web3's development, and the metaverse is already having a tremendous impact in our city. Just imagine what we'll be able to accomplish in the next decade. It is clear that Miami's tech-driven initiatives are setting the tone for policymakers across America to become active participants in building the metaverse, rather than just passively observing how the private sector paves the way. I ultimately believe that with our input, Web3 can be leveraged to democratize prosperity, foster growth, and remove barriers so more can achieve personal freedom. Thank you and God bless.
I'll let the mayor know that you appreciated his video. We've talked a little bit about the metaverse. We've seen movies about the metaverse. The mayor referred to Web3 and the metaverse, but probably a lot of us are still wondering, what is the metaverse? We're very fortunate this evening to have Frank Scavo, who is president of Avasant Research, to explain to us what is the metaverse and what does it mean for each one of us. With that, I'd like to invite Frank up to the stage.
Hi, everyone. Again, I'm Frank Scavo. I am president of Avasant Research. Avasant, as you may know, is a management consulting firm here in Southern California and an IT advisory firm. We help companies make major business and IT decisions. And I head up the research organization at Avasant. And one of the things that we have been focusing on over the past year is this whole issue of the metaverse. And you can go to the next slide. So we'd like to have a panel discussion tonight. This is not just going to be me, but we're going to have two very distinguished panelists along with Heidi, who's going to help moderate the panel. But I wanted to take a minute to kind of level set. We have a lot of very smart people in this room that know a lot about the metaverse. But we want to be sure that anyone here that needs a little bit of help understanding, we cover just a little bit here. So I put this slide together. What is a metaverse, or what we like to say at Avasant, just a verse? It's a digital community that bridges the virtual reality, a physical world, and augmented reality in an immersive experience where we can live and work. And our CEO, Kevin Parikh, also came up with this concept of the omniverse. So what is an omniverse? An omniverse, which is not here yet, is where we can freely move between these various metaverses and take our stuff with us. So this is the vision of where we're headed, is that we will have this immersive experience that we can move between these various metaverses. And some evolving characteristics, it's immersive, like we said. It's not just something that you observe or reflect upon like you do many times on the World Wide Web today, but you immerse yourself in that reality. There's this element of community and collaboration. It's not just something you do by yourself, but you engage with others, whether it's family, friends, your coworkers, or the general society. And it also has this concept of the creator economy. So we have a little bit of this today on the web, but a lot of what we do on the web today is consuming content, right? Consuming things. In the creator economy in the metaverse, we will have the opportunity to create knowledge, create digital products, digital services, and be able to buy and sell them as well, which leads us to this concept of digital assets. Just as you have physical assets, in the metaverse you'll have digital assets. You see that today with NFTs and other forms of digital assets. And of course, to buy and sell those, you'll need to have a cryptocurrency or some type of digital money as a medium of exchange. So those are some basic concepts. We're going to get into some of those a little bit more. But I'd like to call up our panelists. If you can go to the next slide. We had 3 panelists. Where are our panelists? Okay. Along with Heidi. You can come on up. So, of course, we all know Heidi. I don't know that she's been introduced here, for those that don't know, but she's my co-moderator. She is the head of investment products at Wave Financial. And as I've gotten to know Heidi a little bit, she's going to be my go-to person for a lot of these concepts. She's also the co-founder of LA Blockchain Labs, tremendously knowledgeable about blockchain and the metaverse. So glad to have gotten to know you a little bit here, Heidi. Then we have Jennifer Brown, who is an EVP from Lionsgate Entertainment, the well-known producer of TV shows, movies, games, and live entertainment experiences. And her group, and you're more on the live entertainment side, really, right? And events and so on.
I oversee our interactive video games business, our location-based entertainment business, live entertainment,
Right.
and also our consumer products business. So
Right.
really anything not on a TV or movie screen is where my group extends our.
And that's where the major work's being done in the metaverse.
Well, the interesting thing about all the areas I oversee is the overlap in this space, right?
Okay.
We're able to really work cross-functionally across our entire team because you have assets, and we talk about digital assets, which are physical
Right.
and digital assets,
Right.
Gaming, experience, all coming together in the virtual space.
And we're going to hear more about that in just a minute. And then we have Chris Mattman, who's Chief Technology Innovation Officer at JPL, Jet Propulsion Labs. What I found very interesting is JPL, under Chris's leadership and others, is using the metaverse in some very down-to-earth ways, which we're going to be very interested to find out about. And we had another panelist who at the last minute was not able to attend, but I'm going to give her a shout out here, Christina Seraphim. She's the managing director at Verizon Ventures, which is the venture capital arm of the well-known Verizon. And they're making investments in a number of technology areas, including metaverse applications and the technologies underlying the metaverse now and in the future. So a wealth of knowledge. I hope we can come back and have Christina here in another event, because she's really worth listening to in terms of her knowledge. So again, Heidi, maybe you could start and lead off with some questions to our panelists.
Sure, thank you, Frank. So I just wanted to say, during my day job, I am head of investment products for a 100% crypto digital asset blockchain firm, in which we also have a metaverse and an NFT fund. So I have the opportunity to have a front row seat to see a lot of the innovation that's happening on the decentralized or permissionless side of the ecosystem, so not the metas of the world. And I bring that up because we are I'm just thrilled and honored to be here on stage with the both of you, because you guys are truly trailblazers in this space. And I really say that with all sincerity. I'm 24/7 at these crypto conferences and events, and you guys are doing some things that are really changing and shaping the industry. So thank you for being here. And I'm going to start with Jennifer. Jennifer, when we think of the metaverse, I think a lot of us, the first thing that comes to mind is, oh, I can watch a movie in virtual reality or something like that, which, I'm excited for that as well. But I know you're doing some other innovative work within this space. Could you talk a little bit about what Lionsgate is doing?
Yeah, so we have a number of projects, many of which I can't talk about yet, but I'm excited to share more when I can. But we were the first studio, really, to announce that we were entering this space in a big way. And I think, as everyone remembers, last summer was the NFT craze. We actually started looking into Web3 and NFTs and the metaverse a few years ago. And so by the time the NFT craze happened, we were already kind of well-versed in the space and talking to lots of different companies and sort of understanding where opportunities were. And from our perspective, what this is really all about is fan engagement, right? Engaging with the community of our fans. And when you think about where the NFT craze started a summer ago, people were talking about collectability and kind of viewing NFTs and digital assets like memorabilia. Then it shifted to utility, right? I'm gonna collect this digital asset, and in exchange for that, I want some functionality out of it. I want the ability to attend an event in real life. I wanna earn a reward. I want something back as a benefit. But then the third phase happened, and that's community. And that's really the space that we're excited about at Lionsgate, and I think that motivates me. We release our films through theaters. We release a lot of our content either on a TV screen or through streaming. We don't often have a direct relationship with our fans. We do, communication through social media, right? But through the promise of Web3 and the ability for people to now interact not only with each other, but with us in this virtual environment, with digital wallets, we now have the ability to directly engage with our consumers, with our fans, and that's incredibly exciting. So a lot of the experiences that we're focusing on at Lionsgate have our fan in mind, right? And as a content provider, this is really another platform for us to share our content. If you think about how you spend your day, most of you are online or in front of a computer screen on average 8 hours or more, right? For those of you that have Oculus headsets, the average time people spend in their Oculus headset is 92 minutes. I think people are shocked by that figure. So if you think about the way that people are spending their time, and also by virtue of that, engaging with content, there's a massive opportunity for us as a content provider to deliver our content in different ways on new platforms, right? And our job, or at least my job and my team's job at the studio, is to create an ecosystem for us to deliver that content. And so the promise of the metaverse and the projects that we're really working on are ones that allow our fans to step inside the world of the films, the world of the TV series that they love, engage with characters, with other fans, and become part of the story. And I think, earlier Frank was talking about the creator economy, digital assets, games is a big part of this space. And so those are all ways that we're working in this environment, and we've announced a number of deals that we're working on, and I can share a little bit more about that later. But I think our focus is really how do we create spaces for fans to interact, play, hang out with each other, for us to reward them, and for them to create, but create in a way where we're collaborating with them. And so I can share more, but I'm going to let you kind of ask Chris.
Well, I would love, I have many questions, but the first one is I'd love to hear your thoughts on what is the definition of Web3? Because I know some people, what is Web3? And then I also wanted to piggyback that with, you did mention the creator economy and some new things that you're doing. So maybe how does that relate to IP or expand on that?
Yep. So I think, Web3 to me is the promise of a better experience in the virtual world, right? We've been living with Web 2 for quite a long time, and I don't know about you, but I really want more out of my online experience. I'm spending so much of my day, right, navigating through it. It's time for radical change. And so what it will be, I can't really say, because I think there's a lot of experimentation happening. But I think what we all want it to be is that omniverse environment, right? The ability for us to flow, and I would add play to your, live, work, play, right? Yeah. The ability for the virtual world to allow us to seamlessly do all the things we love to do and need to do in a way that feels better than transacting through a keyboard, right? So that's the promise of Web3, and I think that's what we're all working toward. And there's, lots of different use cases for how that's going to play out. In terms of the creator economy, so one of the projects that we've announced, we were the first studio in Hollywood to announce that we're developing a land in the Sandbox. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Sandbox.
Maybe tell them what the Sandbox is.
So the Sandbox is a metaverse that exists on the blockchain. They have their own cryptocurrency called Sand that flows through it. They sell land. And so people can buy land. And for our fans, or people who love our Lionsgate film properties, you can buy land next to us. You can be our neighbor. And on our Lionsgate land, we're going to have experiences and virtual world basically built out for people to explore and play in. You'll see characters from the films, and you'll have the opportunity to go on missions, right, and undertake activities. But interestingly, the step further is we're going to allow you to create things that are tied to our IP. So often, I talk about this a lot, and I think, for a while I was the lone wolf, but I think you're seeing studios say this more and more. We spend a lot of time and energy kind of cracking down on, fans who are creating content, products. You see it in the game space with mods. Certainly there's a lot of fan fiction, all sorts of things that are being created. And we spend a lot of time policing that. Why not harness all that creativity and that love and passion that fans have for our IP, for our stories, our characters, our worlds, and partner with them? Allow them a safe space to create within and to build upon the IP in a way that works, right, for us and for the story. And so we're creating experiences where people get to participate. And I think when you look at the promise of decentralized gaming and metaverse environments, as opposed to a Fortnite or a Roblox, where there's an economy that exists within the game, but it's all being controlled by one entity, right? Why not create an economy that looks more similar to what we see in the real world? And allow our fans to generate some revenue. We generate revenue, right? But everybody wins. And I think that is something that really excites us. And that's not something that you can do in centralized gaming or centralized metaverses.
I don't want to take over this entire conversation, but I wanted to say, Jennifer, I think that's such a progressive way to take a look at this because it's happening. I know in the NFT space, early on, you would see NFTs in which people were building art off of Star Wars or a musician, and the amount of policing, which is understandable, but on the other side, why not flip that on its head and make it a win-win for everyone and grow that community and that family? So I think it's amazing. Frank, did you have a question?
I was just thinking, we're talking here a lot about the entertainment and fans and so on, but it occurred to me, within Lionsgate itself, are there any potential or applications of the metaverse internally within Lionsgate, or is it all about fans?
Yeah, I mean, my role, my background is in experiential, right? So my role is to think about how we can deliver incredible experiences externally. But certainly, when you think about blockchain and Web3, I mean, as a studio, there's so much that we can be doing, not just internally, because I think, I'm going to let Chris talk about how you can work better in the metaverse. That's going to be that segue.
Yes.
But in terms of the movie business in general, the way we distribute films, you can imagine production, right? Seeking all sorts of benefits by being able to put things on chain, right? We have one of the areas that studios spend tons and tons of time in is clearances, right? Because there's different ownerships of aspects of films. Films change hands. We have to clear every single thing you see in a movie. Imagine if that can all live on the blockchain. Like that would really radicalize.
The business.
The business side of it. So I think that there are a lot of efficiencies that we will be able to find as a result of all the developments that are happening.
Excellent.
And Chris. Chris, I met Chris a few years ago. He was one of our first speakers at one of the first blockchain conferences, and it was held here at UCLA. And I remember specifically we talked about how Star Trek influenced so many employees of JPL NASA. And so when I first heard about Chris and the initiative that you were leading at JPL, I assumed you were building something that was a metaverse to explore the universe, which I'm still hoping you will. But that's not what you've done right off the bat. As Frank said, you've built something a little bit more down to earth. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping that Jennifer, we could talk about like arachnophobia, Amblin Entertainment, Lionsgate. Arachnophobia is one of my favorite things, Jeff Daniels. No, I mean, so yeah, it's a pleasure. So I mean, talking about the space of sort of metaverse, blockchain, all of that at JPL, like one of the things that sort of occurred to us, I think, during the pandemic is, and I think this will play with what Jennifer was saying, is it's experiential. So we got tired of Zoom, we got tired of WebEx, we got tired of two-dimensional, not this, and things like that. And so one of the things we thought about was, actually, Beth Appianis and Randy Levin, the former CIOs, I'm sure Jim Rinaldi would have handed me one of these, but they handed me a Oculus Quest 2. You should have seen Randy wearing it. It was funny. She was on a WebEx wearing this thing, not knowing what to do. And then she said, here, Chris and Beth said, take a look at it. And we looked at it, and we said, these types of environments, we could recreate this when we all couldn't kind of get together. And the thing I kind of told people about that, initially we spent a lot of time forcing ourselves to kind of go into this sort of metaverse environment, but it wasn't experiential. It wasn't JPL. We were meeting in a forest around a campfire for 9 months before we could kind of see each other, but it all kind of looked like us. We explored the Spatial.io app. We looked at Glue. We looked at Horizons Workspace, a lot of these sort of apps that are on the metaverse. We didn't build a line of code. We just kind of got in there, we scanned our faces, we looked at the delineation between people that kind of want to see people that look like this versus, I would say, the next generation that like to customize everything, that like to have an avatar, change everything about themselves, and, that creator gaming economy. And, to each their own, but we kind of got in there and we said, hey, look, how can we recreate this type of experience that's so meaningful? Because part of the metaverse, and we don't talk about it enough, I would say, sort of building culture. It's building culture, related to that. It's so easy to turn your camera off on Zoom.
Yes.
It's so easy to check out. Tend to your child, tend to whatever, your animal, at home. It's so funny. It's such a different experience, in the metaverse with one of these Quest 2s on and things like that. I don't work for Meta. I work for JPL. But I'll tell you, the Quest 2 is an amazing device. It's cheaper than a cell phone, price point $300. And I say this different than, we bought a ton of these sort of Microsoft HoloLenses, 6K.
Wow.
And things like that. It's a different type of experience. It's augmented reality versus virtual reality. And I tell people, I say, well, you look at virtual reality, we can control the lighting. So the problem with augmented reality is that you're displaying kind of AR things on top of the real world, and you can't control the lighting in front of that. One of the big challenges we had was trying to do AR in a clean room, with technologies that we were creating called Protospace, the place where you wear the bunny suits, you build the, software that's the hardware that's going to go to Mars, things like that. You can't control the light in those environments. That's one of the challenges with AR. In VR, you can control everything. And so, we look at this, from a strategy. We're going to need both AR and VR. But one of the things we've been looking at this a lot at JPL is really for the future of work, Heidi. Really the future of collaboration. It's our sort of, I would say, mentality. Just given the way that the world is going and given the distribution of our population, I won't give the exact number, but let's say a bunch of people at JPL don't live within the 5-county LA area anymore. And in the past, they had to, right? Remote work was an interesting thing that we did for contractors, but, to go in a clean room, you got to live in that 5-county area. To manufacture stuff that goes to Mars, you kind of be close a lot. And so this remote work world is very new to us. And so our thesis kind of related to this is the metaverse is a key part of this. We believe that we would love to get these Quest 2s into our IT catalog so that they could just order them and charge back to their projects. Everyone could have one, 6,000 people at JPL. Our goal would be everyone has them, and when you want to have a meeting, you don't jump into Zoom or WebEx. You jump into Oculus Quest 2, and instead of meeting around a campfire, you meet in the clean room. Or Jim meets in 180-903, which is the old director's conference room that he used to know at JPL and meet in all the time. Guess what? Here's the other part. We scanned it. So, and you see this a lot in properties, and Jennifer, I'm sure, is seeing this at Lionsgate. This is a really big experiential thing. Don't just meet around a campfire in the metaverse. Scan iconic places. And so, did we build any software or technology to do this? No. One of our things is we actually use these amazing apps. Have you ever touched an iPad? iPads have these amazing things inside of them called ARKit. It's a LiDAR. It's a powerful LiDAR device that can create a point cloud of this entire room. And at the CIO 100 in August here in 2022, we went ahead of time, scanned the whole rooms at Terranea, and did a metaverse experiential thing. I think one of the first one, maybe the first, where we scanned Terranea and we let people put the Oculus Quest 2 on and be in the multiverse and the real universe of Terranea as well, and see kind of that. And so our belief is that you need to combine these things. You need to combine realistic looking people, avatars depending on age, generational gaps, other properties and things like that, along with real iconic culture building places as well. So they're used to doing their collaboration coordination in that way. And so that's a key thing for JPL. We're really excited about that. So, yeah.
So what has that done to the culture now that you have this much kind of remote work with the metaverse? Is this keeping people more distant, or how does that work?
Frank, for us, it's a culture builder. And so we are hiring people. I think a lot of you here in the audience are doing this too. You're going to hire people 100% remote. Maybe you were doing it before. Maybe, like JPL, this has become a thing where you're going to do it now. It's great. There are people that, they live in Texas or Nashville or wherever. They live in, rural Washington. They're amazing and they work for you. They're 100% remote. How better to build a culture than let them walk through the clean rooms when we HR onboard them? Let's take them to Pickering Auditorium, Von Karman Auditorium at JPL. Let's take them to the Space Flight Operations Center. Let's onboard them that way. So we've been partnering with HR, partnering with the business units, figuring out how to do that.
And what's the impact on your facilities? It sounds like you're going to have to repurpose some of those conference rooms, right? Because you don't need them as much.
Yeah, Frank, I tell people, if I had my druthers at JPL, I'd been knocking down buildings, but we're not Google and Facebook. So we can't knock those buildings down. So it's hard. We need a congressional inquiry. I don't know. Randy, Jim, Beth stopped me, but it's harder to do that. Maybe Jennifer can do it faster with her space. I don't know, but we struggle with that. But people need to be thinking, you nailed it, Frank, about how to repurpose their facilities for that.
So what are you going to do with those conference rooms?
Well, for us, we're making them, I would say, more hybrid, more able for folks to have kind of, I would say, for us, it wasn't the big ones. To have these sort of hybrid metaverse type of meetings. For us, we see the huddle rooms as big. Huddle rooms, slapping on an Oculus Quest, or even, one of these more expensive devices, the HoloLens, and having kind of more, the prior speaker, the keynote was amazing.
Yes.
And where are you? We're right there.
Right.
The thing I took away from your talk was intentionality. When we come together, we have to be intentional. And to be honest, I think the big lesson of the pandemic kind of coming out is the difference between asynchronous work and synchronous work. We never knew it before. All work was the same, whether it was asynchronous or synchronous, but just the simple delineation between what you can do outside of these types of things versus the intentionality of synchronous being together, I think is so key.
I also think you nailed it on the head when you talked about the future of work is really decentralized. That's the space that I live in which teams come together from all around the world. It has nothing to do with geographic boundaries anymore. And the metaverse is going to bring us to a boundaryless world.
That's a word. Yeah.
Boundaryless world. And the potential that doesn't bring just for the company, but also for those around the world now have access to work for some of the top firms like a JPL that maybe they didn't have in the past. So going back a little bit to your avatars and company culture, I thought that was really interesting that it seems the older people might go for an avatar that looks like them, whereas the younger generation will go for maybe that cartoon-looking one. What is the impact to the culture and productivity when you are, someone sitting next to you and maybe they look like Hello Kitty?
I think people have to kind of capture themselves, and I consider myself pan-generational. I'm in my 40s. I grew up watching I Love Lucy and things like that. But I can also speak the language. I know what Fortnite is. I know what Rocket League are. I don't know. Just talk to me after if you don't know what those are. Anyways, I have a 13-year-old. I've got 3 kids. I know what I can speak their language too. And the thing I would say, Heidi, is for me, I'll tell you. For me, I wanted to see people that look like you guys, where it kind of looks like you. I'm not the avatar type of person, but I can tell you my son who plays Fortnite constantly, Rocket League, he wants to customize everything. He wants an earring, he wants the hair, he wants different colors, and that's part of their identity. And so part of it, and it goes back to Jennifer's point, is unlocking the creator economy. people don't care if we shove them into the same box, at work. You lose company culture, you disrupt actually potential productivity, and actually to go back to the keynote speaker, how do we unlock the juice? I would say, and part of unlocking the juice, I would say in people is unlocking their creative, juices. And some people that really matters to them to customize. So what do we care as IT leaders or as technology leaders? Let them enable it. You want to come in, if Jim wants to come in as a different type of Jim, like as he mentioned, we'll take him, and he's productive in there and all of that. I'm all for it. And and so I think we need to enable it.
So we've talked about some of the innovation that you're building upon, but where are we today and what are some of the hurdles that you're facing, both of you?
Right.
I mean, I would say that the biggest hurdle as someone who's working, with the broader community, right? Not necessarily people who work in the technology space or are in a company thinking about this stuff. The terminology that exists, I think, scares people. And that's a big hurdle to overcome. I mean, when I talk about the metaverse, often I don't use that word because I think it scares people. It sort of puts people off. I really say a virtual space where people can interact, right? I don't say the word NFTs when I'm talking to people who aren't part of that lingo because immediately, most people call them NTFs, which is a pet peeve, don't do it. But I say digital assets, right? Like there's a much easier way to explain this stuff. And I know I've talked to Heidi about this and we know a lot of people. The industry is so smart. The people working in this space are so smart that they don't now know how to speak a common language. And I think the biggest hurdle is just how do we get more people in, more people excited about it? We don't want to have to drag people along, and they will be dragged along because this is coming, it's happening. We want them to be there with us, like pushing the envelope, getting involved so we can build this in a better way. And so I think the biggest hurdle is that. And I think also, misconceptions about the economies that we're trying to create, and certainly the way that some of these technologies like blockchain can be used. So I think it's really important to highlight the amazing use cases with blockchain that are happening as opposed to sort of focusing on the negative. There's a lot around, I'm sure you've all heard it, like NFTs are so bad for the environment. Blockchain's bad for the environment. Lots of things are bad for the environment. We all get on airplanes, right? But we don't talk about those things in the same way. And if you look at, some of the layers on Ethereum and the new Ethereum layer too, like it's much more energy efficient, but that messaging isn't out there. So I think how do we get the average person to really understand, feel comfortable, and actually, quite frankly, get excited about the opportunity ahead.
So did Zuckerberg do us a disfavor by hyping up the metaverse to such an extent that...
I mean, I will say this. All of the chatter is good, right? Whether there's negative or positive, the fact that we're having these conversations, that I get to spend a third of my day now thinking about and creating these types of experiences and opportunities to engage people, whether it's coming from Meta or other companies, I think it's all good because a year ago, I wouldn't be up here talking about this. And it's because of companies like Facebook. Whether you believe in what they're doing or not, it creates conversation and it's helping us start that education process.
So my question is, how soon will it be that the metaverse, this kind of experience, becomes as commonplace and extensive as our use of the World Wide Web today? I mean, how long will it be until we're really living in the metaverse?
I mean, I've
5 years, 10 years?
I think most people say 10 years, right? But you're already seeing younger, Generation Alpha, they're already doing this, right? Kids are spending tons of time in Roblox and Fortnite, where there's a digital economy. Yes, it's not decentralized, but they're meeting up with friends there. They're, starting restaurants and running them. My kids have worked so many jobs in Roblox, and I can't get them to do a chore, right? So, it's happening already with the younger generation. And so as those kids grow up, which 10 years from now, they're entering the workforce, it's gonna be here, right?
Yeah, as one of the authors of most of the software of Web 1 and Web 2, I was on the Apache board for 5 years, so I like to tell people if you've searched for anything on the web, you've clicked, you've transacted, my name's in the changelog. For it, Hadoop, Lucene, Nutch, Tika, Solar, Elasticsearch, I've written them all. And I tell people, all of the sort of capital behind those software is really combining what Jennifer just said, transacting and experiential activities. That's the definition of Web 1 and Web 2. The reality is in the next 10 years, no one in this room, maybe you will, or I'm wrong, but will deeply affect the train that's already left the station that will replace all that. And I'm happy about it. I'm happy that none of my code will, ruin your transactions anymore or anything, or will search, it's not my fault. But the thing I would say kind of related to that is the train has left the station. It's going to replace it. It's already there. I want to answer Heidi's question and end on that. What's my definition of Web3? I like to grab from Keith Grossman, the president of Time, a dear friend of mine. Basically Keith says the Web3 definition is instead of a login, username and password, it's a wallet connect. And that's what Web3 is. That's literally it. And the infrastructure is already there. You don't have to write it. Whether your organization is using it today or not, in 10 years, you're going to be totally based off of that, period. So.
Well, we're coming up on the end of the time. Do you have one more question, Heidi?
No, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Jennifer and Chris, for your time. And also, Chris, I'm publicly announcing when you guys do launch a NASA JPL space exploration, can I please be your intern? So
you can be our astronaut, Heidi.
Your astronaut. Thank you
Virtual.
so much,
Thanks
Jennifer,
so much.
Chris. It was a wonderful panel. All right, I'd like to invite Thomas back up to the stage. Actually, let's say thank you one more time to Jennifer, Chris, and Frank. Appreciate it. I might have lost my co-host, but we're going to move now into the awards section of the evening. Where did Thomas go? Did he fly away into the metaverse somewhere? All right, well, I'll go ahead and get started while we wait for Thomas then. I also wanted to mention, please stay after. We will be giving a raffle for the Oculus headsets, so please make sure to stay for that. Let me go over a little bit about some of this award section. So our final segment for tonight is the awards presentation. And the Innovate at UCLA Executive Leadership Awards is, oh, hey, there you are, Thomas. Come on up. You're much better suited at this than I am for the awards portion.
I do want to make an announcement since we have a quick break. So for anyone who wants a picture, Luke has offered to take pictures at the Step and Repeat, so please make sure you go outside and do that before you leave today. So with that, we're talking about our honoree.
Yes.
And so I wanted to talk about the Innovate at UCLA Executive Leadership Award. So this award has been given to a digital leader and their organization for the last 30 years. We've had honorees like the CEO of Farmers Insurance, the CEO of Code for America, Amanda, and many others. And if you remember when you were with us in 2019, we had the Farmers Insurance CEO on the stage, and he accepted the award. But back then, what do you remember happened in 2017? Hurricane Harvey. And he talked about how technology really helped Farmers Insurance to do claims processing much faster using drones and lightweight aircraft. And it's technology like Tailspin that made a big difference today and will make a big difference today, because what Tailspin does is create that immersive technology to upskill a digital workplace. So with that, I'd like to play a quick video to tell you more about Tailspin.
I think deep down we all knew the status quo for how we work and learn needed to change.
Not to just learn, but gain experience, even to reinvent ourselves.
So we got to work building something different, special, better.
something we wished had existed when we were kids.
Now, the world is changing so much faster, and the distance between us is greater.
Which is why what we've been working towards isn't a part of the future of work. It's a part of today. It's solved through the next level of connectivity. The workplace may have changed, but those of us in it have not.
Wow, as PwC said, this is just the beginning. So Heidi, please tell us about Kyle Jackson, our honoree.
Yes. So Kyle Jackson is the co-founder and CEO of Tailspin. He's a serial entrepreneur who founded numerous, actually 5 companies spanning enterprise software, media technology, and IT infrastructure. And prior to founding Tailspin, Kyle successfully co-founded Open Drives, which was a storage solutions company that provides storage infrastructure to clients such as Turner, Disney, and Lucasfilm. He also serves as general partner at the All Mobile Fund, where he personally invested in and has overseen 16 seed stage deals and over 30 content investments. Kyle started his career in media and entertainment, and his work supported post-production services on more than 350 feature films and hundreds of hours of television programming. Kyle has a Bachelor's of Fine Arts from another college here in Los Angeles.
The one that shall not be named.
USC. And with that said, please join me in welcoming Kyle to accept his award.
Congratulations, Kyle.
That sounds as tiring as it was to do all those things. This is kind interesting because I applied to come to UCLA twice and got turned down both times. And I'm kind of thankful that happened because I don't think this would have happened if that didn't happen. So, like they said, I ended up at USC and met my lovely wife, who's probably most of the reason that I'm still standing after doing all those things. So we started this thing back in 2015. A lot of the things we're talking about tonight were not words that anybody knew, and it was several years of traveling in the U.S. and putting devices on people's head and talking about what we were trying to accomplish. We were alien for a long time, and now we're less so, which has been great. But the problem we really identified that we wanted to try and work on was a very mission-driven thing, which is that all of the technologies that we're talking about, here and several others that are adjacent, we're all contributing to changing the model of work, as Keith was talking about. And it's a very scary proposition back in like 2013 to see that and go, well, we're so unprepared for how we adjust. What's the new systems that we need to put in place? What is education? What does employment look like in this new world? And that was the genesis. And we said, this is a thing that we're going to work on for a really long time. It's probably going to take at least 10 years to get to something that starts to look like our goal. We're 7 years in, and it's starting to make a lot of sense. And so it's been, all companies are really, really challenging to build. Obviously, there's a lot of just persistence
resilience that goes into it, great teams that go into it. I'd say that of the things that I've been able to do, this team, which is a bunch here, has been the most rewarding to work with. It's not a simple thing we're trying to do. At the end of the day, we're trying to change the way that we move through our careers and our personal development at their core. And that's powered by some of these technologies, but at the end of the day, the technology is secondary. It doesn't matter. And what we're really trying to do is find ways in which we promote the sense of exploration that we all kind of had inside of us at one point in time. Sometimes it becomes stagnant as we go on in our careers. That's not going to work anymore. And so we want to really build a new system for education and our own personal progress that supports the world we're living in, right? Which is a really quickly changing world. You can't rest on your laurels for a second because they're irrelevant the next day. And so it takes a level of humility and a level of persistence in investing in yourself. And a lot of what Keith talked about is what I see every day when I'm talking to clients. This is a scary world for large organizations, and they're trying to figure out what are the new pillars for how they navigate this. And they're not defined by any means yet, but we're getting close, and some of the technologies we're talking about here are, I think, potentially a big part of that solution. So, we're well on our way. We're part of all these buzz terms: creator economy, metaverse. We have a big vision for what we're trying to do. If we're successful, the resume will not be relevant anymore, which is kind of a weird way to think about it. But it's I think we're living at a very unique time, and that we have a lot of opportunity for changing some of the structures in our society that have ultimately just served a lot of people wrong. And with decentralization, with some of these technologies, a lot of that stuff opens up to a much wider audience. Living lives that we wish we could have lived, but we had to stay close to where we were, being closer to our families, being closer to our grandparents, whatever it is. And so all of those things are wrapped up in this, which I think is one of the coolest things about the area we're entering. It's like we get to drive back towards being what does it really mean to be human in all this grand experiment? And I guess the name of the company was kind of leaning into that. We said this is a super disruptive time. We have to walk into the world and tell a bunch of people what we want to try to accomplish. They're going to tell us we're crazy. We need to have a memorable name so that they actually remember to call us 2 months later. And we need to flip all that negativity on its head, which is what we've been trying to do. So it's working. It's not by any means complete, but it's really great to be here, and it's just a weird thing to come back to a place that you couldn't get in and get honored. So I guess thank you for that.
That is so awesome. Congratulations again to Cal Jackson.
Invite Rafi Simonian up to the stage to introduce us to our last award section.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to introduce the final awardee of the night. Before I introduce the awardees, I'd like to just give you a little bit of a background about the program that we started about 5 years ago under Innovate UCLA. It's called the Young Tech Professionals Tech Boot Camps. So it was just an idea at the board level at that time that we wanted to get more students involved into the Innovate UCLA program. And then from that point on, worked with several students. I was chairing that initiative. And students approached me and they wanted to be involved in this program. And we launched the first boot camp back in 2018. So we only had at that time 44 students apply. And I think 24 got accepted into the program. So it was very simple, just about 6-7 sessions. And some of you have been involved in this boot camp. I've invited you to come and speak and present and as coaches. And then we grew the program, and we had hundreds of students for 10 weeks throughout the quarter. They would meet, and the idea was that for them to come together, led by industry coaches, for them to ideate and problem solve a social impact problem in the areas of social tech, ed tech, civic tech, and health tech. So at the end, just spring of this year, we had more than 150 students apply, and we had 42 students into the program. So we doubled the number of teams. So the teams, there were 6 teams of 7 students each, and each team was led by an industry coach, coach from the industry. And I also bring in speakers and session experts. So the program was very successful and became actually officially a course at UCLA, an engineering course. So tonight we want to honor 3 coaches who, for 3 consecutive quarters, spring 2021, fall of 2021, and spring of this year, voluntarily spent more than 15 hours, 20 hours a week working with our students. And remember, these are professionals. They had full-time jobs, and they had their day jobs and their families. But they came and spent countless hours with our students. And to this day, I get emails from students about how thankful they are about this program and how these coaches changed their lives. So these individuals really made a huge difference in the success of the program. And without them, we wouldn't have had this growth in this program. And as a matter of fact, yesterday, I received an email from the development office saying that one of the coaches was so grateful about the program that they made a donation to UCLA, and this was their note. The students were such an inspiration to me, personally, and I've grown as a result of it. Thank you for this program. So, and many of the students are here today, and they are, so many of the students are here today, and I'm so glad I was able to meet them in person because for the past 2 years we've done it virtually. So the 3 coaches that I would like to recognize, and only one of them is here this evening. Andy Johnson, Director of Source to Pay Systems, Sony Pictures. Sumita Yonak, she's the CEO and founder of NeuroLabs, and she's a UCLA Anderson alum. And Barang Abadi, Technology Bureau Manager at City of Long Beach. So I'd like to invite Andy Johnson to accept his award. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Sumita. Thank you, Barang, for countless hours, for making a difference. And these students, you're still connected with these students. You've hired some of these students, and that was the goal of the boot camp. Andy?
Thank you, Rafi. So, Rafi's given a great rundown of the program, but what he didn't tell you was nothing will give you a collective moment of pause than that very first meeting where you join the Zoom call and all the students are looking at you like you know what you're doing. And here's the secret, we don't, but they don't know that, right? So all kidding aside, so the thing that inspired me to join the program was just really seeing the students in action from prior boot camps and then just wanting to give back, right? Saying, hey, these guys are amazing. How can I get plugged into that? And so when I joined, the program met my expectations way above and beyond, right? So just working with the students, these guys are scary smart, right? They're highly motivated. They're absolutely brimming with innovation. So the thing that I take away from this is they inspire me to be better. And these are the guys that if you're not hiring them, I'm going to hire them. So thank you, because these guys are amazing. So get involved with the program. If you don't know about it, come talk to me, come talk to Rafi, any of us here. So just thank you so much for being recognized. I'm humbled by the honor, and I can't wait to do it again. Thank you.
so much, Andrew and Rafi. Oh my goodness, Thomas, it's been a wonderful evening. It was definitely well worth the 6-hour drive that it took for me to get here. But from hearing from inspiration from Keith Ferrazzi, the mesmerizing art installation from Teak, and the trailblazing initiatives that both Jennifer and Chris are doing, thank you so much to all of our speakers. It was a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And while we're doing a shout out, I do want to again recognize Stephen Taylor in the back and Pablo. Where's Pablo at? I was tardy coming in. I was talking to him outside earlier, but Pablo and Stephen have done a fantastic job, really being that magic behind the scenes, helping to be the glue that brings all of this together. So let's just give them a big round of applause as well. Stephen, you want to stand up? Thank you. So it's really wonderful to get that great recap. We also had a really cool CEO, Cal Jackson, speak as well and being honored tonight. But you know what else would be cool? What else would be cool?
An Oculus headset?
An Oculus headset. So let's do that. And Pablo, where's the basket? All right. So in fact, if I can ask Kyle to come up and be our guest of honor. Kyle, can you come up and make someone's night and create more magic for them? Can you pull their winning number out? Everyone's counting on you. All right, 356034. Must be present to win. Oh, we got it. All right, come on up. Where's Luke? Let's take a picture with, you want to take a picture with Kyle, please? Do we have Teak here? Teak? Can you come up and do the honors, please?
Number is 356033. 356033.
All right. Teak, you want to grab a picture, please, together? So as we wrap up our evening, we're actually wrapping up early intentionally. As I mentioned at the beginning, Innovate at UCLA is all about community. It's that partnership between academia, with our member organizations, with our partners and sponsors. So please make sure you spend the remaining few minutes to connect with each other. Share your contact information to folks on your left and right. They won't stalk you on LinkedIn. Maybe a little bit, but that's okay. But make sure you connect with each other. And the other thing I want to share with you is that we would love for you to nominate your company, your CEO, for next year's Executive Leadership Awards. Just like Kyle and Tailspin, we want to recognize those innovative digital leaders that really move the needle in terms of their industry, being a game changer like Tailspin, and really making a difference and changing all our lives. So Andy has graciously agreed to continue as the chair for next year. So thank you, Andy. And as a final reminder, you have that picture of Bhupesh in your photo gallery now. So please join us on October 27th and 2 weeks later for the Women in Technology event. And so with that, I think we're concluding. Right, Heidi?
I think, yes, so we'll see you in the metaverse.
Absolutely.
Right?
So
Okay.
thank you so much. Drive home safely, and make sure you get your photos taken outside, and especially with the Tailspin folks here as well. Thank you.